Hello neighbors, Mr. Orgak, and it is time for Unit 9, Lesson 6. And this one we're going to hit the almighty quadratic formula. So you're going to learn this big formula right here. It is not that difficult to use, and it's an alternative to solving quadratics in case you are not a fan of factoring or to completing the square. This one will work in every single case and actually works in real and imaginary ones, which we, like I said, we're not going to touch imaginary until course 2. All right, here we go. All right, in exercise 1, they want us to solve this quadratic by completing the square. So old hat, we've been doing this now for a bunch of days. Basically, I split it up here. I've got the x squared plus 8x. Half of the b, the 8, is 4. If I square 4, that's 16. So I will add 16 to complete the square. Obviously, if I'm adding 16, I must also subtract 16. These guys here group into the x plus, we said that was 4 squared, and these two guys here turn out to be a negative 13 equals 0. So if we're turning around and solving this one, I've got x plus 4 squared, move the 13 to the other side, so that would be adding 13 to both sides. So that means you equal 13. Then you take, I think I'll change the color for once so you can take a look at this. You take the square root of both sides, and it's plus or minus, remember? So we get x plus 4, because the square and that cancels, equals plus or minus radical 13. And your last step on this one, if you take a look at it, we move the 4 to the other side, minus 4, minus 4. Once again, you cannot connect it. Your answer is x is equal to negative 4 plus or minus square root of 13. And they ask you what kind of answers do you get represent? They are going to be irrational again, okay, due to the fact of the square root. So that's your answer there. All right, we're going to move on. Let's see how we can tackle this another way. All right, so in this second exercise, they're going to introduce the quadratic formula. It is always formed in the quadratic form. And we take a look at, this is the formula right here, the negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So I put this already written as the standard form, what it should look like. I translated this one right here into that form. And our job is to first pick out the a, the b, and the c. That's what you do in order to do the formula. So if I pick out the a here, the a is the number in front of, and I think I'll change the color here, the x squared term. There is nothing there, so that's an unwritten 1. The b is the number in front of the x with the sign, so it's a positive 8. And the c in this case happens to be the number by itself, positive 3. That's how you pick it out. Now, we are to put it into the formula up there and then complete this. Now, this will be a little difficult because you've got to do a lot of writing and we don't have a ton of space. So I'll go back to this. So I have x equals. Formula I'm going to use from up here. I'm not going to rewrite it. You should if you got the room. I need the negative of b. b is 8, so that's a negative 8. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. That's 8 squared. Minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 3. And that whole thing is all over 2a, so 2 times 1. A lot of times you'll have that 2 times 1. So we start cleaning it up. You got negative 8, can't do anything with that. Plus or minus, square root of. Well, 8 squared is 64. And then a minus 4 times 1 times 3 is a minus 12. You got to be very careful doing the math. All divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. So then x is equal to negative 8 plus or minus square root 64 minus 12. Let's see, 54, 52 divided by 2, which is equal to negative 8 plus or minus. Now remember 52 here. That's actually equal to 4 times 13. So I'm going to pull out the 4 as a radical. Square root of 4 is 2. And radical 13. And the whole thing is over 2. So your last step here, and I'll change colors here just to show you again, is that you will divide 2 into both. 2 goes into -8, -4 times, and 2 goes into this thing, cancels with the 2, so it's plus or minus radical 13. And guess what? It's the exact same answer as we just got in part 1. It's another way to do this. It's called the quadratic formula, and that's what we're going to concentrate on in this lesson all day today on. All right, ready for the next one? Okay, in this exercise now, number 3, we're going to solve this quadratic right here a couple different ways. First by factoring, and then the quadratic formula again. So here's the factoring one. It's a hard one. You can do guess and check. You can do the box method or whatever. I'm going to do my old borrow and paybacks, which you might have seen too, which you might not have gotten earlier when Mr. B was here. But I got x squared minus 9x, and then the 2 times 4 is 8, equals 0. We'll try to fly through this quickly, so I will factor it. X and x equals 0. Factors of 8 are 1 and 8, 2 and 4. 1 and 8 add to 9, so I'm going to bring down that sign. Bring down the factor of the 8 here, and then I got to be same sign, so that's going to be also minus 1. Okay, I left the gap there. Why? Because that's the borrowing part, and we took care of it and factored it. Now I got to pay back the 2 in both slots. When I do that, this one here actually can be reduced. So I pull out a GCF of 2 and just make it disappear. So that one turns out to be x minus 4 then, because I cut them both in half. Times this 2x minus 1 equals 0. IT split it up. So x minus 4 equals 0. So x is 4. And the other side is 2x minus 1 equals 0. So I'm going to bring the 1 over. 2x equals 1. Divide by 2. And x is a half. Those are our two answers by factoring. Now if I go over here to part B in the quadratic formula, I pull out the 2 first, is the A. The B is a minus 9, and my C is a 4. So I do my formula, x equals negative b. Once again, I don't have space, so I'm not going to write the formula. I normally would. So then, okay, so we got the quadratic formula. So we need the negative of a negative 9 plus or minus the square root of negative 9 squared minus 4 times a is 2 times c is 4. And that whole thing is all over 2a. So it's all over 2 times a was 2. Sorry, phone calls ring like crazy around here. All right, so x equals. Now watch that double minus. Minus a negative 9 means positive 9. Clean that up. Plus or minus. The big thing about negative 9 squared, doesn't matter if it's 9 squared or negative 9 squared. Either way, that's 81. Minus 4 times 4 times 2, or 8 times 4 is minus 32. All over 2 times 2 is 4. So x will equal 9 plus or minus 81 minus 32 is going to be square root of 49 divided by 4. So that's equal to 9 plus or minus 7 divided by 4. So we have two answers. One is 9 plus 7 divided by 4, which is 16 divided by 4, which is 4. And we have one that's 9 minus 7 divided by 4, which is 2 divided by 4, also known as 1/2 when you reduce 2 divided by 4. Notice, once again, the answers are the same, whether it's factoring, quadratic, or that. Once again, factoring, though, won't help us at all when we get to those irrational answers. All right, moving on. All right, in exercise 4, we just got 2 problems here in A and B, and the bottom line is all they want you to do is practice the quadratic formula. So I would like you to pause the video and do both A and B, and then come on back and you can check your answers with the way I did my answers, okay? Please pause the video. All right, to recap, we'll see how you did compared to what I did. My A was 1, B was 6, and C was negative 9. I plugged them into the equation here. I reduce things, got square root of 36, and 36 makes 72, and if you bust that up, that's actually 36 times 2, so that's where this 6 came from here. Then what I did in green here was I divided 2 into both of these. I'm just showing you kind of like doing a V division. So 2 goes into 6 3 times, 2 goes into this 6 3 times, and the radical 2's there with the plus or minus, so that's where I got that answer. The second one, same stuff. Got an A of 3, B of 4, and C of -1. Sorry, I got a little cruddy up here. But bottom line is I end up getting a positive 12 out of that section and 6 in the bottom. I combine them, get 48. 48 is, once again, 4 times 7. So the square root of 4 is 2. That's where this 2 came from, radical 7 underneath. I once again showing you in a different color green. Took this time, it's not the full 6. It doesn't go into each. I took a 2 actually out of everybody. So I took a 2 out of the -4. You get -2 here. I took 2 out of 2. It's gone. Notice there's nothing in front of the square root of 7. And I took 2 out of 6, and I got a 3. That's my final answer. Yes, you could split these up if you had to, but generally we do leave them this way, and I don't panic over the fraction thing. But if it's a multiple choice question, could come up another way. All right, I'm going to hold right there, and we're going to move on to the next one. All right, and our fifth and final question here, it says a projectile is fired vertically from the top of a 60-foot building. So I'm going to start at 60. That's what you see on my grid right here is at 60. I put a point. And its height is in feet above the ground after t seconds. Here's our big formula, okay? It said use your graphing calculator, sketch a graph of this. So I went to my graphing calculator, put this in, -16x squared plus 20x plus 60, and I got these points. So 0 at 60, 1 up at 64, 2 at 36, 3 is actually at a negative piece down here. And I have graphed this for you. So you're trying to take a look at this schedule of the projectile. It goes up in the air, and then it comes down, okay? Now they want us to solve the quadratic to actually find the answer, because we can't read the answer right here. Looks to me like it's a little more than 2.5, so I don't know, 2.6, 2.7, 2.8, and go to the nearest tenth. So I think it's going to be one of those answers, but let's take a look and let's do this. So my A in this case is -16, my B is equal to 20, and my C up there is equal to 60. So let's use the quadratic formula. X equals -b, so the -20 plus or minus square root of 20 squared minus 4 times -16 times 60. I'm trying to squeeze that in there right there. Sorry, it doesn't show up as well. All divided by 2 times a, which is a -16. Okay, so x equals -20 plus or minus the square root of 400. 20 squared is 400. Minus 16 times minus 4 times 60 actually turns out to be 3,840. So it's plus 3,840. Two negatives in there, clean that up. All divided by a -32. So then x is equal to -20 plus or minus the square root of, if you had the 400 on there, you got 4,240 divided by -37. And you've got two answers going here now. I would put them in the calculator, the -20 plus the 1 and the -20 minus the square root, that big square root. We're not going to break it down or anything like that, and then divide it by -32. So I came up with two answers. One is at a -1.4 seconds. That would be the one over here, somewhere to the left, which we're not going to use. And the other one came out to be about 2.7 seconds. And that was real close to our guess. We knew it was a little over 2.5, and so that is our answer. So there's the reality of it. We run with it, and we're good to go, okay? Any questions on these, please ask them tomorrow, but this whole thing was on the quadratic formula. Don't be lazy and try to use one of the other methods. Please practice quadratic formula and write your good WSQ.